Hey everybody, so welcome to part 2 of preparing for my first NRL22 match. I'm here at the range today to do my ammo selection as well as gather some dope for this Sunday's match. So I looked at my calendar, and since registering for the match, today will be my only range trip that I'm able to fit in my schedule before the match on Sunday, and I don't have any data yet, any real data to go shooting for. So of course, especially with 22 at these distances, you need good data. You might as well shoot in the wrong direction if you don't have good data to go off of. So that's what today's going to be, today's range trip is going to be for. It's just first off selecting which ammunition I'm going to shoot on Sunday's match, as well as gathering the dope needed to shoot the match with. So I'm going to quickly compare these 3 different ammunition types and select one to gather my dope with. The first one is going to be Cci Standard Velocity. Up until now, this is the only ammo that I've shot through the CZ457, so it's kind of my benchmark because I know it shoots well. It holds tight groups, but I feel like the BC on these standard velocities are not as optimal as the ballistics coefficient on the SKs. So I'm going to hopefully shoot SK if they shoot well out of this gun. So the 2 SK loads I'm testing are Standard Plus and Rifle Match, which are substantially more expensive than the Standard Velocity CCI, so I'm interested to see how they shoot. I decided not to consider Lapua ammunition for Sunday's match because I don't have enough to both test and shoot the match with. Also, going forward, I think I'm gonna, depending how the SK stuff shoots out of the gun, I'm probably gonna stick with SK because it's substantially cheaper than Lapua and still very good quality ammunition. One of the huge upsides of shooting 22 for myself is the fact that it's very economical to do so. So going forward, I'll probably stick towards SK and then just shoot off the little bit of Lapua I do have. So I'm going to just be shooting 3 or 4 groups of each one to decide which one I'm going to shoot on Sunday. And I know that's not optimal at all. You probably want to shoot a lot more groups usually, but I don't have enough time because I have only about maybe 3.5-4 hours here today after I have some obligations in the afternoon. So I'm just going to shoot maybe 4 groups, 5 rounds each, and decide. Honestly, for NRL22 style matches, as long as you have good consistent ammo that doesn't have too many flyers and holds fairly tight groups, you're going to do pretty well. The difference between ammunition that shoots like lasers and one that shoots, 3rd-inch groups at 50 yards is not going to gain you many points because the NRL22 size targets, target sizes is pretty generous to begin with. And much more of your points is going to come from your marksmanship, your positional shooting abilities, and your ability to call wind. So again, I'll probably just quickly zero these in at 50 and see what we get. So I've decided to use SK Rifle Match as the ammunition I'll be shooting this Sunday. After some very preliminary testing, I only shot 4 groups of each 3 types of ammo, and they all shot fairly well, so I figured I might as well just shoot Rifle Match because in theory, since it has a little bit tighter tolerances and quality control on the production line, it should hold a little bit tighter. But at 50 yards, they're all holding pretty good groups. So I'm just going to shoot Rifle Match and start getting some dope for Sunday. I'm going to be putting out targets from 25 yards all the way up to 200 in 25-yard increments. And then I plan to graph it in Excel quickly. And then I can basically fill in the blanks using the curve that it will produce. So I have here some dope data that I got from a ballistics calculator. If we can see that there, I got the dope, what it should be in ideal conditions if the muzzle velocity is as stated on the box and everything. And I'm going to shoot again all these distances from 25, 50, 150 all the way up to 200 and see how close my numbers are. I'll compare them. But what's nice about having data like this is it gets me in the ballpark, so at least I can see my hits and I can kind of dial it in from there. It's a lot colder today, so I feel like I'm going to have to dial in more elevation than what the calculator is telling me because this calculator didn't take into account temperature. So that's basically what I'm going to do. Just start at 25 yards all the way out to 200. I only have 2 target stands that I set up myself, so I'll do 25, 50, then probably keep one at 50 since that's my 0, and then 50, 75, 50, 100, And then when I get to 100, I'll do 100, 125, and then 150, and then 200. So I'm just going to start shooting. So checking back in, I just got my actual dope from 25 out to 150 yards. You can see I've been taking some notes, and I will graph this properly later. But the calculator holdovers that I was giving me was pretty good to get me in the ballpark. I was usually within 2 to 4 tenths of a mil off from what the calculator was telling me. So it's pretty cool that I could use that data to just kind of get me in the ballpark. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot some groups now at 175. And the holdover is supposed to be 6.3 mils. And we'll just see, I have 6.3 dialed. Let's see if I can see some hits. Okay, so 200 yards, I'm going to dial in 8.2 mils. See if I can hit that. So 6, 7, 8.2. So I'm on the lower edge of my target, which is about a 10-inch target. I have to come up about 4/10 of a mil. I'm at 8.2 right now, so 8.6. We'll dial in. See if I hit the center now. I saw that impacted slightly high. Just high. So I think 8.5, 8.4, 8.5 mils. I'm gonna do 8.4. How many rounds do I have left? 1 round. $8.5. I'm holding dead center. Wind is basically dead. So I'm pretty sure I just put 3 shots into a 3-inch group at 200 yards holding 8.5 mils. Let's do 150. 50 is 4.5. So we're going to go back to 4.5. Shot on 150. And I'm on at 150 again, so that's perfect. That is good dope. Alright, so I have finished gathering my dope at 25 yard increments out to 200 yards. And just to show you here some of my chicken scratch, I'm going to have to type up properly later. You can see, just to give you some examples, the calculator was telling me to hold, let's say at 100, 2.2 tenths of a mil. So 2 and 2/10 of a mil, and I was holding 2 mils on the dot at 100 yards. No, sorry, read my handwriting wrong. 2.4, so 2/10 of a mil higher, which makes sense because it's a lot colder today. And at 200 yards, it was telling me to hold 8.3 mils, and I ended up having to hold 8.5. So pretty cool. Also, I realized my parallax knob on the side of this scope does not match up with the distant markings on it at all. So I also had to have a column of what parallax adjustment I need to dial in for the different distances, and they're quite off. But that's very common with parallax adjustment knobs. Anyway, I'm gonna go get my targets and get out of here. I've been here for about 3 hours. I was pretty efficient, I would say, in terms of setting up my targets and getting the data I had to quickly, but fairly accurately. Again, I tested out 3 different types of ammo very quickly, and then got dope all the way out to 200 yards. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm walking up to my targets here. These are the last 3 targets I shot at the 200-yard range. So I had 2 of my own set up at 150 and 175, and then I used the ranged targets to shoot at 200. And I just thought I'd show you some of the targets that I was using to get my dope for Sunday's match. So here's my 150-yard target. You can see this was my first groupings, trying to get it on target and hold for wind and stuff. And then my last 3 shots were right here, so I've basically dialed it in, maybe slightly high, 1/10 of a mil. And then this is 2 shots. That was a little 4-round group, so good data for my 150-yard target. So this one really picked up for the wind, and I kind of noticed that as I was shooting. So my first grouping was high, and I actually had to bring my adjustment down about 3 to 4/10 of a mil. And then I shot this guy, which was kind of all over the place because of the wind. But then I ended up here, still some vertical stringing, as you can see. These are 3-inch targets, but then my last few shots were basically right on. So that's 175. So I'm walking up to the paper plate I used for my 200-yard target, and it's just such an easy target to use. I just put a 3-inch sticky on it and then shoot at it. So my first few shots, actually my first 3-round group I can see is right here. So I was low. I brought it up a little bit too high and then adjusted for it. And then my last grouping was right in there, which is really good for 200 yards with a 22. Okay, so just to end off this video, I thought I'd just show the graph data. I'm literally filming my computer screen right now because my screen recorder is not working, but just to show you, this here is what the ballistics calculator showed that I should hold over. I'm actually using different numbers, a different ballistic calculator than what I was using at the range, but just for example, these are some of the numbers that a calculator gave me, and these are the actual numbers that I got from shooting my dope at the range earlier today. And I thought it was pretty interesting. If you look at the graph here, they are very similar. So it's good to know that these calculators are pretty accurate, and this calculator didn't take into consideration things like temperature and humidity and all that stuff. So if I delete this column, this is the data I'm working with. You can see it's not perfect. I inserted an equation of best fit. It's a polynomial function, and it seems to work quite nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this data on my phone, and I'll probably print a copy off as well. And at the range, if there's any targets, for example, at distances that I didn't gather data for, so let's just pick one, let's say 65 yards. Well, I only have data for 50 and 75, but 65 yards, let's just say, falls on this line, and it's about 0.6 of a mil down. So that's what I would dial, and it'd probably be good enough to get me onto the size targets that NRL22 usually shoots at. Another example here, let's just say pulling something on my butt, 140, so I just go down here. 140 is about 4 mils. And that's basically it. This is what I wanted to get in terms of my data today at the range. Again, the data doesn't seem to be perfect, and I definitely have to tweak it, but for the time I had, I think I did a pretty good job, and this is what I'm going to be using at the match to dial in my shots. So that concludes the video, the part 2 of the series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one.